These days we see mental health all over the place in video games. Think of classics like Silent Hill 2, Celeste, Psychonauts 2, Night in the Woods, all with interesting depictions of stuff like anxiety, panic attacks and the inner machinations of our mind. I'd say we're lucky to have them because in 1996 you could count the games about mental health on one hand, with no fingers. Actually one finger, because that's when we got Nights into Dreams. When Sonic Team made Nights, they did a lot of research into specifically the works of Carl Jung, Friedrich Holtz and Sigmund Freud. Concepts like shadow, persona, all stuff rooted in psychology. But what I find the most impressive is how it depicted anxiety and even how the main characters, Elliot and Clarice, deal with their anxieties. Digi Valentine made an excellent video about that, I highly recommend checking it out. But it got me wondering, was Nights into Dreams truly the first game to cover mental health this way? Unfortunately, I don't know every game in existence, but I tried my best to find other games that have themes like anxiety and depression, and what I found was interesting, to say the least. I definitely discovered some games I would have never found out about if it wasn't for me making this video. Now before I dive into them, I want to make something clear. I think just being about the brain or a disorder or mental health in general isn't enough to compete with Nights. What made Nights so special is that although brief, it feels like it actually has something to say on the topic of mental health. You see the direct effects of stressful situations on the mental states of these kids. It's not just a game about flying through wacky worlds, but also about finding your confidence that's a lot more abstract and thorough than just having an anxious character in your game. You actually see Elliot getting back on that basketball field after getting his ass kicked the day before. You actually see Clarice calming herself down with a breathing exercise. There's tons of games about characters getting scared or going into dream worlds, but I don't think that's on the same level. So how about we just pick a bunch of games that appear to be about mental health that came out before Nights into Dreams and see what we get. Let's start with the first game I stumbled upon, Suspended, a Cryogenic Nightmare from 1983. It's an interactive text adventure written by... Hold on, wait. No, are you serious? That name, oh my god, that's Michael Berlin! That's the creator of Bubsy, Michael Berlin! Holy shit, what? I mean, I know he was a very passionate creator who actually cared a lot about Bubsy, and I've seen interviews with the guy, and he seemed like a very creative and kind person, but the range, dude! Suspended is a game about a human being who is stuck in suspended animation, hence the title, where your brain is basically being used to control a planet. You're responsible for keeping people safe, but the three main computers that usually take care of the most important tasks go kaput. Even though you're stuck, you can control 6 robots to do your bidding. Each robot has a distinct personality and will have different things to say about the locations that you visit. You could argue that this mirrors the different parts that a person is composed of, like an anxious part, an angry part, etc. But from what I can tell, the game doesn't explicitly acknowledge it like it's a reflection of somebody's personality, so yeah, I'm not sure about the mental health stuff, but holy cow, what an unsettling and creative game. The genre is not really my favorite, but man, I honestly kind of want to try it now. And guess what? This is unscripted. I'm going off the rails. I just tried it actually right before recording this, and it is still not my genre, but I enjoyed what I played. I can highly recommend checking it out. And that box art, that is nightmare fuel. Next up, we've got a game from 1990 called Psychosis, or Paranoia in Japan. The title got my attention because, you know, Psychosis and Paranoia, that's two different things, so that's already a weird regional change. Psychosis is an umbrella term for experiences where you can no longer tell what's real, and it can include symptoms like hallucinations. But paranoia, which is an unjustified fear, can technically be part of psychosis, you know, but still, the two words are very different and you can't just swap them all willy-nilly. The game itself is a 2D side-scrolling space shooter, and while the story is about your mind being taken over by some kind of evil demon thing, and you're supposedly traveling through your conscious and your subconscious, the mental health themes seem more like an afterthought, to be honest. It's not like the stage visuals seem rooted in anything brain-related, so I don't know. I can't say this one's themes have impressed me all that much. The same applies to 1986's Mindwalker, and although it doesn't have much to say about mental health, the connections are a lot more obvious. In this game, you're inside a depiction of the human brain and you have to help a patient with their psychosis. There's a maze of brain cells and a kind of puzzle where you tap Sigmund Freud's pipe to get a hint, but yeah, that's about it. The screen flickering and sound design, they seem extremely obnoxious, but I read in some comments that people actually hold this balls-to-the-walls difficult game in high regard still. So even though it looks kinda rough now, I am glad it made some nice memories for people. Now this next one, I can be brief about this. Something amusing that came up was the good old 1988 NES classic Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. While the original story has themes about the inner struggle of good and evil that lurks within us all, this game has none of that. There is a good and bad ending, but it's kind of confusing what it even means, so no, this is not the first game about mental health. Though if it actually had some kind of story in the game, closer to the books, then who knows, things could have been very different. I don't know what the hell this next game is, but this cover scares me. It's from 1996, same year as Nights, and it's about the band Devo. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know who the hell Devo is, and I don't know anything about music, but the story is about some homunculus creature escaping or something, and your enemies are, let's see, how does the description phrase it? Healthcare providers, entertainment corporations, and right-wing fundamentalists? What else? The writing is by Mark Mothersbaugh, the same guy who did the Thor Ragnarok and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart soundtracks? Oh, he was in Devo. That makes sense, I guess. Now, you're not gonna believe this, but this game was a contender for GameSpot's Worst Game of the Year award. I'm shocked. Shocked, I say. Anyway, the only reason I'm even talking about this thing is because on Wikipedia it's classified as a game about mental health for God knows why. It's just too ridiculous not to mention it. And the game does have a theme about anarchy and thinking for yourself and whatnot, but the game is such a random mess that I don't think it counts for much. Any Smart Patrol diehard fans who want to defend this game, feel free to use the comments and tell me how wrong I am. I would actually be kinda curious to know. Now, this next game could be a real contender, a 1995 PlayStation game called D. In this game, a girl named Laura Harris discovers that her dad has gone on a murder spree inside a hospital. When she sees all the blood and bones, she gets sucked into an alternate reality. Now she has to find her dad and get the hell out of there. There's violence, cannibalism, and all kinds of dark stuff, but that's not why it caught my eye. At first, I was under the impression that the alternate reality that Laura gets sucked into may be some kind of world of her own creation, like she tries to find some escape to cope with the trauma of seeing all those bodies perhaps. But as it turns out, the world is created by her dad. So does the world say anything interesting about the state of her dad's mind? Yeah, unfortunately not really. It's just a spooky castle. It's kinda like Psychonauts before Psychonauts, but only kinda. So yeah, not much about mental health. I do want to say that the full motion video stuff is pretty cool for 1995. An interesting title for sure. You'll never guess what the D stands for though. Holy crap, this game's story is insane. If you want to try it, there's a 2-hour time limit, so hey, could be fun for a short little horror experience. The very last one I want to look at is The Legend of Kyrandia, Malcolm's Revenge from 1994. We're heading into cozy, classic point-and-click territory now. So nostalgic, so frustrating. It's the third game in the Legend of Kyrandia series, and what's interesting about this one is that you can play as the villain and you switch between 3 states: truthful, normal, and deceitful. Choosing the right personality is important for solving puzzles. That's a very creative idea. And also the game has a laugh track. That's a less creative idea. In all fairness, there is some semblance of a Shadow the Hedgehog morality system. The game has a moment where you have to choose between staying evil, doing a neutral route, or turning your life around by listening to your conscience. Interesting. It would be even more interesting if it mattered. Turns out the ending is about the same no matter what you choose. This could have been something cool, like showing that the mask you use when approaching social situations may impact your life and those around you in some way, but I'm gonna say disqualified for having a laugh track. And that's pretty much all the games I found. It's a bit of a random selection, but I think it illustrates pretty well just how unique the approach of Nights was at the time. So, is it true? Was Nights the first game to really be about mental health? Well, depending on how you define being about mental health, personally, yeah, I think it was the first to show and acknowledge it this extensively. Even though, you know, being completely honest, compared to modern games, Nights doesn't set the bar that high with its very short story and limited cutscenes, but it was among the first to illustrate stuff like anxiety and stress in a relatively modern and mature way, and I think that's still a significant historical milestone in gaming, especially if you take into account just how much they got across with zero dialogue, like clenching your fist when you tense up, and that literal sinking feeling when you get humiliated, but also using a breathing exercise and finding the confidence to try again by facing your fears. You see it all the time in games now, but someone had to do it first. If you think I missed the game, or if you just want to talk Nights, let me know in the comments. And I'll see you in 72 years when I make the next video. Okay, bye, see ya.